This is Pastor Dave Taman from Cayman International Assembly.
And this is Dane Ramoon. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're continuing yesterday's discussion about changes that take place or should be taking place in our life as a Christ follower. Now, Pastor Dave, what are some of the most important steps a person can take to see change or transformation happening in our lives?
Well, that's another good question, Dane, because Paul does put a responsibility upon the believer to bring about some or to initiate some of those changes, and so there are things that we need to learn to do and to discipline our lives in doing. Again, the verse that we've been referring to is from Romans chapter 12, verse 2. It says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. And then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." Now, there are four things that I like to tell new Christ followers that they need to do in order to let God bring about the kind of change in their lives that they need and that they want and that God wants. And the first is that we need a positive support network. You know, most new Christ followers are coming out of a totally different environment. Now, you can probably comment on this better even than I can, that usually when God brings about some of these changes in your life, you already have a network in place, and it's not necessarily the network that's going to help you in your growth as a new believer. Have you found that to be the case, and what have you had to do about that yourself?
Networking meaning the people that are around you?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so
your friends, your coworkers and so forth.
Yeah.
Those are the people that are around you before you became a Christ follower, and then when you became a Christ follower, did you find that some of that network that you had been so comfortable with before suddenly were trying to pull you in a different direction?
Yeah, and they weren't intentionally doing it because they were my friends, and a lot of them are family, so they weren't intentionally doing it, but they were still stuck in their old ways. So if you're stuck in your old ways, then you're going to continue to do what you're used to doing, and you're going to think it's okay for the person that just gave their life to God to do the same thing too, because they don't understand the change. They just know that this is who I've always known and this is who he is, so they don't get that. So yes, I think I had to be that positive influence. I had to make a decision. It's either drop the friendship or drop the family, or make such an impact in their lives that they have no other choice but to follow me in what I'm about to do. And that's what I've been doing, and I feel like a lot of my people, even the ones that I thought that was going to be like difficult, have actually every single day been asking me more questions, and have been saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about coming to your church one of these days." Still hasn't showed up, a lot of them, but they still ask questions every day, and they still listen to me, and they would pass little comments and be like, "Oh my God, you've changed a lot. Like, that's never used to be something you said." And that's so good to hear and to feel, that every single day now when I go around them, I make it a mission to accomplish that. I have to get this person in.
That's a really good observation, and I like what you said, that you began to include those people who are already in your life into your new life. And there are some folks who will tell you, okay, you got to get rid of the old completely and get a whole set of new. Yeah, it reminds me of a story in the New Testament that I love to tell, because this is so real, and that is when Jesus approached Matthew. At the time, he was known as Levi. He was a tax collector, and he came up to Levi, and he said, "Follow me." And Matthew's life was changed at that moment, because he became a Christ follower. Literally, he was following Christ. And the first thing that Matthew did was to throw a party. As the Bible said, a banquet. It was a party, however you want to describe it. And he got all of his friends together, and these were all tax collectors, all of the sinners. In fact, some of the religious leaders called them the scum. But yet he also invited Jesus and the disciples. He invited his new friends, and he introduces new to the old. And so I think that's one of the things we fail to do sometimes, is to begin to develop the new friends, but incorporate them and allow them to have an influence in the old friends. Now, there may be some friends occasionally that are really out to just mess you up, and they're not the kind of people you need to have around. Sometimes you have to eliminate them from the influence of your life, but you still continue to pray for them and so forth. Another thing that we need to learn to do is learn to read and to understand the Bible. Now, the Bible, for a lot of new Christ followers, that sounds like, man, that's got to be the most boring book in the world, because they started they start in the wrong place so often, and they try to get through sections of the Bible that can be very, very boring unless you understand what it's about.
Exactly.
So what was that like for you? And I noticed it wasn't that long ago that you approached me and you expressed that was something you never learned to do, was to understand reading. Tell me about that.
I didn't understand the Bible a lot when I read it, and I felt bad by even telling anybody that. But it's a lot of people. When I found out that, speaking to more and more to friends, especially friends that's in the church, they started to say, "Oh, yeah, I really don't get it either. I kind of read my daily bread, and that explains enough for me." And there's so much more in the Bible that you have to read and you have to understand, because you have to know, exactly what was done to get you here where you're at right now, and that's what's so important. But the understanding factor to me was just being honest about it, that didn't understand it, and going around a group of people that did understand it.
It can be intimidating.
Yes, it can, and it sort of still is, because sometimes when I sit down in the Bible studies, I hear so much passion from everybody that has read the Bible before, and they can say this one thing that gets at me all the time because I don't understand it yet. It's like, this is kind of like that story in scripture, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I can't do that yet. But I get why they do it, and they're just so passionate about God, and they've learned to read the Bible. They kind of want to do it. It's like you seeing something that you really want to do. Like if you want to play basketball, but you got to put the time in and learn the skills, it's the same thing. If you want to be that passionate about it, then you got to put the time in and you just got to learn it. And things you said in Bible study I just never knew you could do, like pray about it first. Take a book and write down things you don't understand. Get back to it. Ask questions about it. I didn't understand any of those things, so it's a learning experience.
It also helps to understand how the Bible was brought about for us, and to understand the structure of the Bible. So it is good to get into some kind of study in some kind of group where that is going to be taught to you, so that for many who don't understand it, it gives them a little bit of background, and that can be very helpful. So I encourage folks to learn to read and understand the Bible. I've been often asked, well, what is the best translation of the Bible to get? And my simple answer is generally whichever one you're going to read.
Yeah.
Because there's some we get, they say, well, this is the one you're supposed to want. This is the one that Paul spoke, and so well, if you're not going to read it, it doesn't do any good. So you can find one. There are a lot of new modern translations that are easy to read, and so I encourage you to find one that you're comfortable reading and start there. Now you'll grow, and you can get into some of the other translations as well, but that's a good place to start. The third thing I want to mention is that you need to get connected into a balanced Bible-believing and teaching body of believers, church, or some group where you're going to have your faith challenged. You're going to hear the word discussed and explained, and so forth. You started pretty quickly after you became a Christ follower, getting connected in. Now, that wasn't immediately where you became a faithful attender on a weekly basis, but that grew into something. Yeah. But what difference does that make, or did that make for you in finding a body of believers at church that you could be comfortable?
It makes you never go back to your old ways. because then you have someone there that's going to challenge your wrongs, like your things that you think that it's okay to do. They're going to challenge you. They're going to be like,
that doesn't mean they're standing around looking for mistakes in your life or anything like that.
Not at all.
But there are people there who care about you,
yes,
and that will challenge you.
Yes, and it's very important to have these people too, because then you start to realize that, I didn't have it that bad, or this person actually did something that's more amazing, and you kind of say to yourself like, wow, who'd have ever thought that they could have come to church, but they did, and they changed and they became somebody new, and just to hear their story, it makes you feel, I wouldn't say that you feel good that somebody else is struggling more than you. You feel good that God forgives everyone. And it doesn't matter what the category is, the sin that they commit. You just feel good to know that God forgives everyone no matter what they did. And that's what the feeling that I got. I was like, wow, this man really does care about me and doesn't care about my sin. He just wants me to come, speak it, and he will forgive it. Like whatever my sin was, talk about it and ask for forgiveness, and he's going to do that. But my friends and people that believe in God also and in the body of church, they have helped me greatly, because when I go around them, I feel like every day I can't disappoint them. Like these are people, and not only them, but God. But I feel like I have a set of people that depends on me as much as they depend on me too, or we all depend on each other. That's what I'm trying to say, and it's a great thing.
That's an excellent point, because not only do a good body of believers hold you accountable, but they also can stretch you. They can help you to encourage you to reach to new standards of growth and faith, and it's a very positive thing. And it's sort of like having your own set of cheerleaders out there, and they're cheering you on because they see when you're struggling, and when you're not feeling on top of the world, that there are going to be people there who are going to help you through whatever the challenge may be. And I've heard it said many times that a good body of believers, and of course our focus is from our perspective as members of the CIAG, there's a family. You may be from out of country and you're away from your family, but you can have family here whenever you come together. People who care about you and love you and genuinely are concerned about you. So that's an important, very critical thing that I would encourage every new Christ follower to get connected in right away. And then the fourth thing is, and you touched on this earlier, and that is ask questions. It's okay to ask questions as a new Christ follower. God is not intimidated by your questions. He's not scared. He's not gonna he's not gonna discipline you because you asked a question. What happens when you start asking questions? You start getting answers. And how has that helped you? I know you tell me you call me quite often, and it's a good thing, and it's something that we need to do. Not necessarily just call your pastor, but call someone who you have a trust in and a confidence in, that they're familiar with what God's word says, and they can help you through that. How has that helped you?
Learned a lot. Like you get the answer that you want, and
not always.
I don't mean to say it that way. You don't always get the answer that you want, but it's a learning experience, and it helps you too. Like, because if you don't ask questions, like for me, best example I can give right now for the perfect answer to this is that, what if I never asked for help about the Bible? I would have never read it and fed off of the gospel. I would just be this person that was praising somebody I really don't know.
Very true.
And that's the best way to say it. So you have to ask questions. And my mom always told me that there's not a question in this world that's a dumb question to ask. So
well, the only dumb question is the one that you don't ask.
Exactly.
Now from a pastor's perspective, it's also important for us to know where our people are and what questions they have. So that's a good point to make as well.
Exactly. We're out of time today, but join us tomorrow as we recap some of the key points of our conversation this week.
Cayman International International Assembly meets each and every Sunday morning in the Regal Movie Cinemas at Cayman Bay. Our service or program begins promptly at 10 a.m. and lasts for 70 minutes. As I said at the beginning, we do church differently. We invite you to dress casually and come expecting a different kind of church experience. We present an uncompromising message in a contemporary and relevant way. You can find more on our website, CIAGKY.com.